Front-wheel drive racing cars, FF as they're commonly known, and actually thinking about it, F is usually what I say when I see someone about to drive one without having much experience. A front-wheel drive is a staple of things like Mini Challenge, Clio Cup and my beloved British Touring Car Championship, probably because most modern cars on the market these days are front-wheel drive. They're considered safer, and having a series based on production road cars that have all the power sent to the rear doesn't do a lot for road relevance. And I've had my piece to say on front-wheel drive racing cars before. Devil's drivetrain, horrible things, how does anyone ever drive these things without nuking tyres? But I will concede that there is a certain coolness about a front-wheel drive car cocking a wheel up into the air as it goes through a medium-speed corner, like Brundle at Snetterton like they were at the weekend. But is it a case of, I hate them because I can't drive them? A similar default argument used to try and shut down those who dislike the Nürburgring. Hashtag James May was right. Hot take to get engagement in the comments aside, I thought I'd sit down and try and piece together a video on the differences between front and rear wheel drive racing cars and how they're driven. Like I said, I slag off front wheel drive racing cars all the time, but maybe the problem isn't so much the car, maybe it's me. And I'm just too used to getting my kicks from the rear, literally and metaphorically. And as mentioned before, most production cars these days have the engine and the drive in the front. And conversely, most racing cars from MX-5 to Ginettas to LMP1 all the way up to Formula 1 are all rear-wheel drive. And yes, there are some LMP1s that have electric motors in the front as part of the hybrid system, and I'm also pretending that Nissan thing never happened. In the majority of cases with rear-driven, purpose-built cars, so not based on road-going high-performance cars like in GT3 or GTE, mid-engine, rear drive is the preferred formula. Le Mans prototypes, Formula 1, IndyCar, stuff like that. It's all down to weight distribution, centre of gravity and other stuff I don't understand. So when it comes to weight and other mind-bending physics stuff for front-wheel drive, you'll find all the weight over the front end. And through the rules of weight transfer, as the car brakes, you'll have all the forces sent to the front, where all the weight is, almost like pulling the front brakes on your bike. When the car accelerates, the forces are then sent to the rear, away from the driven wheels in a front-wheel drive, and towards the driven wheels in a rear-wheel drive. The general theory is that front-wheel drive cars will be better on the brakes as they'll have all the weight over the front, and rear-wheel drive will be better on corner exit due to the car squatting at the rear under acceleration. And if you watch the BTCC, you'll notice that drivers like Colin Turkington and Ash Sutton can get absolutely filthy starts, while their front-wheel drive opponents have to be more gentle with their right foots. Right feet. Feetsies? And if you've ever driven the Audi TCR in iRacing, you'll know exactly where I'm coming from. Now, because all the drive and steering is done from the front, the main downside to being in a front-wheel drive car is tyre life. Like I said, the front axle does all the driving and the turning. The rear tyres, by comparison, do nothing. In a rear-wheel drive car, the tyre wear can be more even due to the fronts doing the turning and the rear doing the driving. For that reason, rear-wheel drive cars will have a slight advantage in the latter stages of a race. The rear-driven cars will have to heat all 4 tyres prior to the start of the race. The front-wheel drive cars will only have to heat 2. And this is where we move into the driving side of things. We've all seen drivers like Senna drive around tracks while wrestling the wheel like it's an out-of-control fish he just caught, but this style of driving won't wash in front-wheel drive. Because the fronts are doing all the work, you have to be careful. And the best way to be careful is be less Senna and more Jim Clark. You have to be smooth, and this is true for turning and for getting on the power. In a rear-wheel drive car, you can turn the car with the throttle and do donuts. If you mash the throttle in a front-wheel drive car, you're going to crash. And if you don't crash, you'll nuke the front tyres. And then you'll crash. Mash the throttle in a rear-driven car and you'll get a slide-on that not only helps turn the car but also looks fucking cool. In a front-driven car, it's the opposite. You won't turn at all, and the front tyres are just going to scrub. It's all about precision with front-wheel drive. Millimetre perfect every single time. Very few inputs from the steering wheel, well, one turn in and then micro adjustments every single time. And then, obviously, being very gentle and very patient with your right foot. You feed it very gently as opposed to mashing it. Another issue that you can run into, especially on slightly older cars driven from the front with too much power, is torque steer. Because of everything being at the front of the car, the engine and the transmission are all in the same little package, i.e. the bonnet. As a result, the diff has unequal half shafts, so depending on what side the transmission is on, you'll get torque steer in that direction, because it's got not as far to travel. With modern electronic gizmos, this isn't so much of a thing nowadays, whether that's a TCR or your mate Dino's brand new Civic Type R. But all that said, front wheel drive does have a neat little party trick. If the back end is coming out, either because too much lift-off oversteer or you've been Jason Platoed, you can mash the throttle and bring the front end out. At the expense of front tyre wear, obviously, because, yeah, all that's a thing. But it'll save your bacon more times than you'll want to count. So I guess the TLDR of all this is, if you're complaining your tyres are dead to Bono after 3 laps, chances are you're not driving the thing properly. It's a bit like when road racers who have spent forever in F1 cars or similar try to do ovals and they're struggling to keep up. There is a huge difference in how front wheel and rear wheel drive cars are driven. They may be slightly easier to drive, at a slow speed that is, but they're very, very difficult to master. But since I've been running the TCR almost exclusively in iRacing for a couple of months now, I've managed to translate that smooth throttle action and smooth steering input into driving rear wheel drive cars, like the F1 cars you see me drive in the Can F1 Handle series, or just even the B-roll that I do for the race reviews I do. It is actually true. Smooth is fast. If you hate front wheel drive cars, the problem is 99% you. In this case, the problem is me. I'll actually admit it. I hate front wheel drive because I can't drive them. But I do encourage sim racers out there to give front wheel drive a go. If you rinse tyres, they might help. If you're inconsistent, it might help. Sometimes you might need to drop down a few categories and let your ego sit aside while you drive a slower car to get certain techniques nailed. But what are your thoughts? Are you a front wheel drive person or are you strictly rear wheel drive? And if so, why? Is it because you don't enjoy them or is it because the learning curve is so odd? Let me know in the comments. So this has been a quick video on front versus rear wheel drive, the differences and why people might not necessarily enjoy them. Like I say, leave all thoughts and opinions in the comments and get a discussion going. I mean, this isn't pressing issues, but I still like to read opinions from other people. And while scrolling down, you can like the video if it's been useful, and if you want more, you can obviously subscribe. Massive thanks go out to the patrons of this channel via Patreon, and if you want to support me at a more personal level or just join in the Discord stuff, I'll leave all relevant links in the description box for you. So until next time, I've been Aidan, have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.